Welcome to the Prime Real Estate Network channel on YouTube. I'm your host, Mr. Prime Real Estate, Ric Davis.
And I'm your host, the Texas Real Estate King, LarryWBrooks.
Every week, the King and I will provide you exclusive access to our network of lenders, investors, and real estate professionals from both the commercial and residential real estate sectors.
Now, are you millionaire minded? Or maybe you're a millionaire in the making? Make sure that you subscribe so you can get connected to the network. And always remember, the Prime Real Estate Network, where millionaires are in the making.
Create wealth for generations.
What's up, Prime Real Estate Network listeners? It's your man, LarryWBrooks, a.k.a. the Texas Real Estate King. Hey, when you get a moment, go ahead and go over to shoplwb.com. You can see the Pure Hustle merchandise that we had over there, some of our newer items that we have in stock, and of course, I got all the books that I've authored. I'd love for your support. You have a great day.
Good day. Welcome to the Prime Real Estate Network Live. I'm your host, Ric Davis. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with you this week, just like it is every week. And I want to thank everyone in the audience for tuning in. Big, huge shout out to everybody checking us out live on YouTube and Facebook, man. Thanks a lot. Get involved in today's episode. Leave myself or the Texas Real Estate King a relevant real estate question in the comments section. And you never know, we may be able to get your question answered on today's show. Hey man, we having a great time here. We're streaming live from the Brooks and Davis Education and Training Center here in the lovely city of Houston, Texas. And we want to invite everyone to stop by our office at 2600 South Loop West, Suite 310. I want to take a little time to introduce my co-host. Man, I want to thank him so much for sitting in on the show. He is not only a highly successful real estate broker, he is a multi-time author, serial entrepreneur, the proud proprietor of the Pure Hustle clothing brand. I want to thank him so much for sitting in on the Prime Real Estate Network Live. And I'd like to introduce the Texas Real Estate King, Mr. Larry W. Brooks. How are you?
What up, Rick? Man, I'm doing amazing. No complaints at all. We're here for another beautiful Thursday, you know, to bring on a guest that's going to share wisdom and opportunity. And, you know, it's funny because it's that season. It's that time of year when people are making adjustments, you know, getting excited about their 2025 and things like that. And so being able to bring on amazing guests, being able to come in and just kind of talk to people is going to help them out a lot.
You know, and I want everyone in the audience to understand, man, this is one of the episodes that myself and Mr. Brooks have been looking forward to in all season. As we like to pride ourselves here at the Prime Real Estate Network, we are all millionaires in the making, creating wealth for generations. And today's show is going to be exactly what you need as far as being introduced to someone that can provide you with the tools to get all those goals accomplished.
Yeah. You know, not only that, Rick, and I like to tell this because, you know, we had a huge training that took place at our facility on yesterday, as well as through Zoom, just getting people up to speed on being able to have their business plan and things like that in place for their 2025. And so, you know, we're at that space in the real estate community where licensees are either unhappy with how their 2024 went, so they're looking to be a part of maybe a different brokerage firm, maybe a different opportunity energy. And I want to take a moment right now to tell people to like and share this video, share this that we're going to be doing here today. But also, if you are looking for a different opportunity, want to speak with someone about maybe what that looks like, I want to invite you to leave a comment in the down below, or actually reach out to me, you know, DM me, as they say, and let's talk about it. But yeah, man, I'm excited to get going with today's show too, Rick.
You know, one of the great things about being able to host this show with you and being able to interview as many dynamic guests that we've had the pleasure to interview here on our platform is that we always stay on the cutting edge as far as what's the latest and greatest here in the city of Houston and all over the great state of Texas, from not only a buying, selling standpoint, but most importantly from an investment standpoint. So could you just talk a little bit, Larry, about with your experience here in the city of Houston, the networking connection that you have? Could you just talk about how the multifamily investment sphere, as far as building and home ownership, has just totally exploded in the last 12 to 18 months here in Houston?
Well, you know, the thing about real estate is it does age, right? And so we found that a lot of our infrastructure and some of our single family homes have started to age. And so what that has allowed, though, that has allowed, new developments to come in. And a lot of those new developments that we're seeing come into the city have been coming into the multifamily space, especially very heavy over the last 5 years, just developing on either individual lots, building out those communities, meaning community parks, community centers, and things like that, has really allowed that space to flourish. And so, man, today's guest is going to really be able to speak on that for us, speaking the opportunity of investing and getting into that space, especially with times of change. This is a good opportunity to do those things that they consider house hacks and stuff like that. So I'm excited to talk about that, learn more about that today myself.
Absolutely. And for everyone in the audience, if you own property, if you've inherited property, and you're in any of what they define as opportunity zones, or in a gentrification area, and you've been seeing new construction popping up all around land you own or land you're inheriting, today's episode is for you. Like, subscribe, share today's episode, because today you will have an opportunity to learn about everything you need to know to invest in the multifamily real estate space. So I'd like to introduce this week's guest at this time. This fine gentleman is an author, a business coach, an investment coach, and also, like Larry Brooks and myself, is a fine podcast host as well. I want to thank him so much. He's here to teach us everything that we need to know about multifamily residential real estate investment. I want to thank him so much for sitting in on the Prime Real Estate Network show, and I'd like to introduce Mr. Charles Seaman. How are you, sir?
Rick and Larry, I'm great. It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks so much for the opportunity to be on.
Sounds good. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. So, Charles, for those in our audience that are being introduced to you for the first time, could you introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your organization and your why when it comes to real estate and investing?
Absolutely. So, I say this jokingly, but my story started maybe a little bit different than most. And it wasn't so much that I was actively seeking real estate investing at the beginning. It was more so I was, as I like to put it, young, dumb, and broke, and I needed a job. And that kind of led me down the path of real estate investing and got me interested in it. And then eventually looking into some of my own deals. So the why is because, one, I enjoy it. Some people get in because they have a tremendous, burning desire for something else. And there are things that I do want to do outside of it, but I actually enjoy it. What I enjoy about commercial real estate is the negotiation. I enjoy the gamesmanship. I think there's a lot of strategy. It's almost like a real life chess game to an extent.
It's great. I thank you so much for sharing. And so for those in our audience that may not be as versed in the definition as far as single family, multifamily, can you define for our audience when you mean multifamily commercial real estate, some examples that they may have seen in and around where they stay?
Absolutely. So in simple terms, a multifamily property is any residential property that has more than one residential unit. So basically, if it's a duplex, a triplex, a fourplex, all the way up to a 500-unit apartment building, those are all multifamily. For lending purposes, it's defined as something that's 5 or more residential units. So there's a pretty big gap there of how small it can be versus how big it can be, and it's limited only by your imagination.
Now, Charles, one of the great things about having you on the show is that with your wealth of experience, we can kind of pull back the curtain for our audience from some standpoints and get some of those questions answered that they may not have someone like yourself to enlighten them about. So when it came to the multifamily space, what was it about multifamily residential or real estate that appealed to you more than maybe single family or any other aspect as far as real estate investment?
Great question. So with the job that I was previously working in, I was working for a successful commercial real estate investor in New York. And a lot of the practical experience I had was in different commercial real estate assets. So what attracted me to multifamily specifically was 2 things. One, it allowed me to use the skills and the knowledge I already developed. And 2, with multifamily specifically, while I do like other commercial real estate assets, multifamily has a need. You don't have a need necessarily for office space, as we've certainly proved in the past couple of years. You could argue there's maybe not a need for retail space, but fundamentally people need housing and they need shelter. So regardless of single family or multifamily, there's a fundamental need. So that gives you stability and consistent demand. And it also allowed me to use the skill sets that I already developed in my previous experience to further them in my own career.
That's so true. And the great thing about that is that sometimes that transition in the real estate cycle is something that gets underreported. And, sometimes you can get caught up in just living life, pursuing success, whatever you define that as being, and you may not necessarily be as dialed in as far as how the real estate sphere and the real estate space is evolving. So have you seen any trends as far as new investors getting involved in the multifamily space? Because one of the great things about having you on, Charles, is that you can share with us about your organization. You can share with our audience a little bit about mastering passive income and how you've seen those people reaching out to you for that education who may not have invested previously.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to give two separate answers to that. So multifamily, kind of as I alluded to, it can cover a lot of ground. So in terms of larger investments, and for purposes of this conversation, let's call those properties that are 50 units and above. I think you've probably seen less new people come into the space in the last 2 years because there's been a lot of shakeup, in particular with the debt market, and that's very important. The debt and the equity markets, and that's very important in the commercial multifamily side. In the smaller side, I think that you're still seeing a good number of investors come in, because a lot of times if you're going for, let's say, a 10 or a 20 unit property, is it going to be larger than just a single family home? Absolutely. But most times it's not so prohibitive that an average person couldn't pursue it. Now, granted, it's probably wise to have some money, so you have a little bit of cash reserve just in case anything goes wrong. But you can use a lot of the strategies that people have success with in single family and just apply them, because you're really dealing with mom and pop owners in that space anyway. So if you're doing a direct mail campaign to find single family, that'll work in this space. If you're using broker or wholesaler relationships, that can be effective also. So there's a lot of different techniques that work in single family that also work in these smaller multifamily properties. And even people who like creative finance, you can use things like that can be effective in that space.
One of the cool things about sitting in with you is that you are passionate about educating the public. Mr. Brooks and myself, we're passionate about educating the public as well. Could you talk a little bit about education, your mentorship, your podcast, all the things that you do from an outreach standpoint, why you find that it's important, and what type of value do the people you work with gain from you exposing and putting yourself out there in that way?
Yeah, absolutely. So with anything, regardless of what it is in life, we all need to start somewhere. And for most of us, we're probably coming into something new without the experience and without the knowledge of what to look for. And a lot of times, while it's good to know what to look for and what opportunities exist, it's probably more important to know what not to look for. And sometimes you don't find those things out until you make mistakes. So that's the benefit of working with a mentor, somebody like myself or somebody else in the space that's got experience. You can fast track your own learning curve by learning all the things that can cost you money. You want to learn the things that can make you money, but you want to be able to steer clear of the pitfalls that can cost you money. And having somebody else's expertise and somebody looking over your shoulder, that can give you a big benefit. One of the things that I've done specifically, and I've done for the last 4.5 years, is probably what I'm best known in the space for, is I've hosted a free underwriting session on Saturday afternoons. In the past, that was a weekly thing, but we changed the frequency to monthly recently. And what we do is we teach people how to underwrite a multifamily deal. In simple terms, basically how to analyze the numbers to see if it's a good deal or not. And we walk through one deal during each session. And the purpose of it is strictly educational to make sure that people know how to look at deals. Because one of the challenges I see is many times people don't know if they're looking at a good deal or a bad deal. And all deals look good if you don't know what you're looking at. So you have to understand where the numbers pencil out. And there is some truth that every deal has a right price, but you just have to figure out what that right price is, so you don't wind up regretting that after, because buying at the wrong price is the one mistake that you can't correct.
No, that's outstanding, man. Thank you so much for sharing, because a lot of times, especially with education and trainings, they like to say that the more that the students invest in the class, the more likely they are to totally be engaged. But the thing that you're doing that I think is groundbreaking and so different is that you're doing it on a grassroots level, exposing those who may be new to the investment space or may be new to that aspect of the investment space, and putting them in a position to get involved from a passive standpoint without feeling like there's much risk involved. Can you speak to our audience a little bit about some of the ways that you've learned that they can get involved in multifamily from more of a passive standpoint and may not necessarily have to be as leveraged from a risk perspective?
Sure. So the most passive way would generally be as an investor in a syndication deal. And for me, what I do is I am a syndicator. So what that is, it's pooling together different resources, experience, time, money, from usually a fairly large number of people to be able to use those different resources to acquire and operate properties. So if somebody's in a position where they already have money of their own, the most passive way for them to get involved is as a passive investor. That means they're putting money into one or multiple of these deals, and they're very hands-off. The upside is that it's very passive. There can be decent return potential. The downside is, they don't really have any say in the ongoing operation. So if you want to be totally passive, that's the way to go. But if you want to be, maybe somewhat passive, but still have a say in decision-making and operations, then probably buying a smaller multifamily property with their own money, or potentially with, one or two JV partners where maybe they're putting in some sweat equity and the JV partner's putting in some money. That could be an option. Now, that won't be as passive, but you still get a say at the table. And for some people, that's going to be an important piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. So Charles, have you been working on any projects recently that have been more development based, or you kind of seeing more older units that you're kind of coming in and doing a little bit of work and getting them fixed up? But what area have you been focusing more of your energy on lately?
Great question. So really my entire time in syndication has been more what they call value add. So that's usually an older property that you're fixing up. Now, one of the misconceptions I see is that a lot of people take the value add strategy and they think it has to be some type of physical improvement, some type of capital project. And it certainly can be. Let me be clear on that. But there's other times it can be an operational project. And I actually like those better because I look at it as less risk. The challenge I see is that, okay, you go out there and you put all this CapEx money into a property, and then maybe you were wrong on the projections. And that happens. It happens because, one, we're human, we all make mistakes, but two, market conditions aren't stagnant, they change. So sometimes when you buy the property, if you go a year or two in the future, market conditions change, and not always for the better. If you bought that property in 2011 and it was 2013 now, then you probably did pretty good because the market was aiding you. If you bought a property in 2022 and you're in the current day and age, you may be looking at it saying, oh, that didn't go the way I thought it would.
No, Charles, could you please share contact information, email addresses, websites for anyone in our audience that would like to reach out to you and become one of the students that you coach on a one-on-one basis?
Yes, absolutely. Phone number, I would give my cell number. That's usually the best one to reach me, 347-306-3278. Email is C as in Charles, Seaman, my last name, SEAMAN, @masterpassiveincome.com. And for websites, there's two I would give. One is masterpassiveincome.com, and the other is REWBCON, REWBCON.com, which is an annual event that we do.
Yeah. Charles, lately I've been visiting some of these. They have this app called Clubhouse. I've been in some of these Clubhouse rooms, and I'm starting to hear pushback. You have people that are dedicated stock people, meaning they love real estate reefs. What would be your pushback, or what would be your thought process versus, the physical ownership or the physical flip of a commercial property versus, real estate reefs and stuff like that? Or just what are your thoughts and opinions on those? I'm just curious.
Great question. I'm probably going to have a different opinion than a lot of people because while I do love real estate, I also like stocks.
Yeah.
So I'm not somebody who's like, okay, it's got to be one or the other. I think having a healthy balance of different assets is actually a good way to protect yourself.
Yeah.
So if it's somebody who wants to be active, then I don't think a REIT or even a passive investment or syndication is a good fit for them.
Yeah.
They probably want to go out and buy your property and be more hands-on. If it's somebody who's passive, I think there's benefits to both REITs and syndications.
Yeah.
What I like about REITs personally is that they generally tend to have a lot more structure.
Yeah.
While syndications do take the resources of many different people and use them for the benefit of the property and ultimately the investment, the challenge with most is that they're truly mom and pop operators, even if they don't present themselves that way.
Wow.
And that's not a bad thing, but what it means is that most of those deals have one or two key people, and God forbid if something happens to that person or people, that investment could quickly become a mess.
Right.
Whereas a REIT is going to be a lot more structured. They have succession planning. They have a full slate of officers and most times staff members. So if the CEO of the company dies, there's usually a plan in place for somebody to step in and take that role. So there's benefits to both. I think it depends on what you want. You'll probably see returns that can run a little bit higher in a syndication simply because it is private with less overhead.
Yeah.
But with REITs, you may see a lower overall return, but it's also risk adjusted because there's generally more safety with that additional structure in place.
Definitely. Thank you for that answer. I definitely agree. Actually, with exactly the way that you structured it out, I definitely agree with that. Another question that I had myself as we're getting ready, as we're closing out, get started in November and going into 2025. What are some of the things that you're excited about, or some things that you have in place for your goals of success when it comes to 2025?
Absolutely. Well, what I'm really excited about, and I've been excited about this the last couple of years, but I think we'll start seeing it come more to fruition in 25, is I think there's going to be a lot of buying opportunities. And in multifamily specifically, single family has held up remarkably well over the last 2 to 3 years. And it seems if we get some rate cuts, you may not really see much of a blip on the radar there. Multifamily, I don't think will be so lucky, simply because of the way debt is structured in the commercial space versus the residential space. And in the larger properties, I think you're going to have a lot of loan maturities that cause issues for a lot of sellers. But on the buy side, I'd be licking my lips getting ready saying, okay, here's the chance. For everybody who says, I didn't get to buy in 2008 or 9 or 10 or 11, well, here you go. Here's your chance. So you got to be ready and you got to be, hungry and out there actively doing things. In the smaller properties, I don't think they'll have as much of an issue with debt maturities because this may sound strange to some people listening, but a lot of the mom and pop operators, while they may be labeled unsophisticated sometimes, what they have is common sense and they know not to over leverage themselves on a property that they can't afford. Sometimes you see that same quality elude larger operators as they're going out and buying deals. So with a lot of the smaller operators, where I don't think they'll have debt issues, I think that the opportunity there is really on a lot of retiring owners that don't have buyers to sell these properties to, especially not at the prices they want, because many of them are trying to get prices they saw in 21 and 22, and those prices are gone.
Yeah.
So the opportunity with those deals is probably having some type of creative finance structure. So for somebody who's maybe done single family, they want to jump into multi, but not go into a 100-unit apartment building. You can go after that owner who has the 10 or the 20-unit apartment building, and maybe they're 70, 75 years old. They've been kind of running the portfolio themselves, and they don't want to do it anymore, and they can't really find the buyer. So maybe the path there is some type of creative finance. And you say, okay, well, look, I'll take it off your hands. We'll come close to the price you want, but I'm going to need you to carry a note or to do something that's going to allow it to work for me.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. I want to thank you so much, Charles, for not only being transparent, but also granting our audience the value of your experience. And I'm just curious, and those in our audience, I'm sure they would like to know as well. I know you talked about you started your real estate investment career because you were broke and you needed a job, and it was from that standpoint. But when you think back on your upbringing as a young man, were there members of your family that were business owners or entrepreneurs that may have been an example or a guiding light that you had to consider as you evolved and became seasoned as a business owner?
Great question. So the answer is I didn't have any members of my family that were entrepreneurs, but what I did learn from my family, in case any of them are listening, I say this with love. I learned that while they were good people, they weren't who I wanted to follow financially. So the wisdom that I picked up there was that I didn't want to travel the same path they did, because I knew if I did that, I'd be, financially broke the rest of my life.
No, that's a great answer.
Hey, that's wisdom in the gym by itself. I can definitely agree with you, because at the end of the day, you saw what it is that you maybe didn't want, and some opportunities that have more prosperity that you did want. Right? It's kind of the whole remedy when everyone's like, go to school, get a good education, stay at your job until you're 65 years old, then retire, then go on vacation. Like, does that really, at our age, does that really sound like fun?
No, not at all.
Right?
No, know the great thing, Charles, about you sharing that story, and I thank you so much, is because Larry and I have had the pleasure of interviewing nearly 300 business owners and entrepreneurs. And what you start seeing is a common thread of success, where either as a young person, they took advantage of opportunities that their family presented them with, or you find those that took advantage of the motivation that being members of their family created for them.
Yep.
In either way, it can all lead you down that bountiful path. So I want to thank you so much for sharing. For those in our audience, Charles, that would love to meet, greet, interact with you on a personal basis, when will that next opportunity present itself, and what events have you committed to being a part of that's coming up in the near future?
Yeah, great question. So there's two of those. One is called REWBCon, and I'll give that website again. It's REWBCon, REWBCON.com. That's an annual event that we do. Usually gets 400 to 500 people, all different types of real estate investors, single family, multifamily, passive, active, lots of different ones. And that's going to be a 3-day event, April 10th, 11th, and 12th in St. Louis, Missouri this coming year. And then a second one is called Rube Club. So Rube Club is a monthly in-person event that we do. Right now, it's just in Charlotte, North Carolina, and Phoenix, Arizona. And I'm a co-host for the Charlotte group for anybody who's in that area. And we will be adding more cities as the time goes on and the group grows. That's kind of like a hybrid between a meetup group and a real estate REIA event. So it's a chance to interact with myself and with other real estate investors that you can learn from and network with and maybe partner with.
Yeah, man, thank you so much, Charles. And I urge everyone in our audience to follow Mr. Charles Seaman on Instagram. Could you share your Instagram handle with the audience, please, sir?
Yes, absolutely. So it is C, my first initial, last name Seaman, SEAMAN 316.
Thank you so much, Charles, man. Larry and I have been edified so much by your interview. You've had an opportunity to enlighten us and our audience. We want to thank you so much for carving some time out your day. Larry and I always make a joke every week about how Thursdays are the busiest days of the week for business owners like ourselves. So we want to thank you so much for carving some time out of a busy Thursday.
Likewise. Thanks for having me, guys.
And before we let you go, Charles, is there anything that you'd like to leave for the audience? Doesn't matter what it may be, whatever that could be, as we close out.
The biggest thing I would always say, whether it's multifamily, single family, whatever it is you want to do in life, don't quit. I'm going to steal a phrase from the great prophet Mike Tyson. Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. You got to get knocked down.
You are.
You're probably going to get knocked down multiple times. It doesn't matter how many times you get knocked down. It's how many you get up. So just keep getting up and keep going and keep chasing your dreams, because it's rare that it's going to be a straight line to success. It's usually going to be a bumpy ride. Be prepared for the bumps, embrace them, enjoy them, and learn from them.
That's right. That's right.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much, Charles. Man, it's been an honor and a pleasure to interview you this week here on the Prime Real Estate Network Live. Anytime you would like to sit in with Larry or myself, please just reach out to us. You always have a seat with us, brother.
Excellent. Thank you very much, guys.
Appreciate it, Charles. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Now, look, man, if we keep having guests on like Charles, they're going to turn you into the Texas multifamily real estate king, man.
Hey,
Let's go have on a tower like George Jefferson, man.
Hey, that's it, man. We just listen. We just want people on the show that's gonna continue to be open-minded and share their vision, share what it has allowed them to be successful. And then, of course, when people, I always want our guests to understand, feel comfortable reaching out to any guest that we've had on here. The information that they give you, reach out to them. See if you can participate in some of the things that they got going on. So the Arizona people that watch our show, North Carolina or South Carolina, I believe it was, that's watching our show that wants to participate in some of these meetups and opportunities that Charles has going on, please feel free to reach out to Charles and indulge in some of those opportunities.
No, and I got to ask you this before we sign off this week, Mr. Brooks. I know we're all familiar with Charlotte, North Carolina. We're all familiar with Phoenix, Arizona, Scottsdale area. Has the Texas Real Estate King ever conducted business in the Lou? What you know about St. Louis, Missouri, Mr. Brooks?
Man, I know nothing about St. Louis. I once, to answer the question though, I once did assist with a commercial opportunity in St. Louis. But other than that, I don't know very much about it, but just besides that opportunity that I worked on.
No, because Charles just mentioned that they have conferences in St. Louis. I thought to myself, I say, I don't know if I or Mr. Brooks has ever had the opportunity to put feet down on the soil in St. Louis from a real estate perspective and share our knowledge and wisdom. Yeah,
I mean, other than the opportunity, and this was last year with that particular project. And the thing is that the Lou has opportunities that's taking place, right? It's just like every other seat. Every places gets older. Once it starts to get older, generations come in and have to change up, make things look nicer, bigger. So things like that. I feel like that's one of those changes that's going on with St. Louis right now.
I appreciate you mentioning that, because one of the cool things you always mention a lot is how as you travel and network from a business perspective, you get so many tidbits from different parts of the country. So it's only natural that a place like St. Louis, especially in your vision, is a great opportunity from that standpoint.
Yep.
Now, before we sign off this week, Mr. Brooks, what you got going this weekend? What's going on in the world of the Texas Real Estate King? What we got on deck as far as football, hanging out, and what in the world is the Texas Real Estate King doing this weekend?
Well, listen, we in playoff mode over here in Manville, baby. So, we putting our schedule together to figure out which round or what day we gonna play on. So we enjoying those successes. But other than that, man, that's the only thing I'm participating.
We guarantee the playoff berth, so we in the playoffs for sure.
Oh, we for sure. We just trying to figure out how we just figuring out who we playing that's gonna get us to round 2 of the playoffs, baby. We getting into our zone right now.
Hey, look, well, congratulations to all those fine gentlemen over there playing football in Manville, man. Like, I know sometimes the season go by fast, but take some time to appreciate the fact that you qualified for the Texas State High School football playoffs. It ain't a lot of players or a lot of teams that can say that. Yeah. So take some time to be thankful that we've reached this far, and then, like you say, recalibrate your goals to try to win the chip.
For sure. Man, I'd like to take this moment to say I appreciate all of my friends, family members, that came out to support Manville and my son, man. It's crazy to me because we had over 25 people to come out and just show this kid love, man. And I remember having this conversation with him, letting him know that when I was playing high school ball, I had one uncle, my Uncle Johnny, that would come to every game. And that was the only representative that I had when I was playing that game. So it's just a blessing to watch people come out, pour into this young man. And I just want to let them know on this stage, on this platform, that I appreciate them, pouring into my son that way.
No doubt about it, man. Look, prayers up for everybody, man, especially from a football perspective, man. We pray for good health and success. Yeah. Look, on behalf of myself, Ric Davis, and the Texas Real Estate King, Mr. Larry W. Brooks, if you need us, we just a text, email, direct message, or phone call away. Until next Thursday, here on Prime Real Estate Network Live, everyone in the audience, please be safe and be blessed.
Bless.